Today we're covering the Burn shotgun. You can get this gun by buying it from Blueprint Shop in the Wish Machine for 8,000 star chrome. It's currently phase 1. It ends in 1 day and 12 hours. On phase 2 you will get to gacha this blueprint from the Wish Machine, which is going to be this one, Destructive Flames, and the Flaming Rune for its armor key part. Today we're going to be talking about, is this gun worth it? How does it perform in PVE and PvP, and its pros and cons. First, I'm going to explain how this gun works. We're going to go to Blueprints and right click the gun, click Details, scroll down and click X on I keyword. Here, we're going to explain how actually the burn damage works. So this is not the gun, this is how burn works. You will deal basically 10% of your PSI intensity. Every 0.5 seconds, you will take damage for 6 seconds. Up to 5 stacks, it can stack 2. The damage comes from elemental damage and status damage and PSI intensity. It cannot crit, cannot strike weak spots, will not decay with distance. This damage is basically when you shoot with your gun, like this, and whenever you trigger burn, there you go, we're burning. So this is the damage that I just explained. Now, getting into the actual blueprint on how it works, you have 27% chance to trigger burn on hit. You also have a 20% chance to generate a deviant particle, which is a fireball that spawns on the ground, which you can pick up, and the chance is 20%. Now, when you collect these balls, when you reload your weapon, your ammunition will be replaced into a Dragon's Breath ammo until the next reload. So as you can see, as I pick up these balls, the more you pick them up, by the way, the more damage you'll deal after you reload. So we got 4 balls, we'll do the maximum amount of damage. And you can see when I shoot, I do fire damage to the dummy. That's cool and all. It says right here, deals blaze elemental weapon damage equal to 85% attack. Burn damage bonus applies. So let's say I pick up the ball, I reload my gun. We are now in Dragon's Breath state. Right now, your damage is dependent of your base damage, which is here. Your damage is also dependent of blaze elemental damage bonus. And it's dependent of your burn damage bonus, which you obtain on the bottom of here, but it's not showing up. It's because I don't have a cradle, but let me just showcase it for you. I'm going to put it on right now. And you can see that this burn damage bonus also applies to the damage. However, one thing you need to know is that the Dragon's Breath ammo does not work with status damage. And it doesn't work with PSI intensity, because it works from your base damage, which is this. So now I'm gonna showcase it to you. Above my health bar, you can see that I have 2 number. This is basically how many balls you have collected, and if you reload the gun, that means your next shots are gonna be Dragon's Breath, like that. Now you can also see that we are critting, and yes, you can crit when you have Dragon's Breath ammo, which is cool, I guess. So I haven't equipped every single armor piece right now, and you can see our PSI is 131, and we have Dragon's Breath ammo. And I do 172 damage per shot, right? Our PSI is 131. So now we're going to equip every single armor piece, and we have 413 now. Watch what happens when I shoot. We're doing the same damage, 172. Once again, that is because Dragon's Breath ammo does not work with PSI intensity, and it does not work with status damage. All your damage is dependent from crit, blaze elemental, and lastly, burn damage bonus. It says right here, upon reloading, all your charges will be consumed, and your blaze elemental damage will be increased based on the amount of balls you collected. Now you can see our blaze elemental damage is 8.8. I'm gonna unequip these boots for now. We have 8.8. I'm going to shoot and spawn 1 ball. Okay. We're gonna reload and take a look at our elemental damage bonus. You gain 20% instead of 10%. So the first ball you always collect will be 20% instead of 10%. And you can collect up to 4 balls, which will give you total 50% elemental damage bonus. It's not 40%, it's 50%. And you can pick up only up to 4 stacks. After you get 4, you will not be able to get more than that. So I'm gonna try to get 4 stacks right now. As you can see, not a single ball spawned. We got only 2 balls spawning, which is kind of trash. So you're gambling with this gun as well. These new guns that these developers have added, you're literally gambling with these guns. Playing slots machine. Oh, let me shoot a target. I'm gonna spawn a ball and collect a ball. Oh, maybe I won't spawn a ball. You know? Now we're spawning so many of them. So I need to get 4. Okay, we got 4 balls. Now I'm gonna reload the gun and take a look at my Blaze elemental damage bonus. It's gonna go up to 58.8. See? So that's what you get for collecting 4 balls. Now, the key armor for this gun, it is when any target nearby is inflicted with burn, there's a 50% chance to generate a deviated particle. Picking it up increases blaze damage by 30% for 15 seconds. You have to have these boots for this gun, for sure. And now, whenever you collect a ball and get up to 4 stacks, you will instead get 80% elemental damage bonus. Let me show you. Alright, we got 4 stacks. Let's reload the gun. And you can see we already have 38.8, but we're gonna get another 50% from just reloading and consuming these stacks. So the 30% comes from the boots. Increases blaze damage by 30%. Now, blaze elemental damage bonus versus burn damage bonus, they're the same thing. They're 2 separate multipliers, but burn damage bonus is harder to get. And as you saw already, you get burn damage bonus from these 2 cradle perks here. And if I trigger burn, I'll just get burn damage bonus over here. Technically, you want to increase your burn damage bonus with your mask mods and your gun mods. And that is, for example, this one, burn damage is what you want to get. And you want to get burn trigger chance and burn trigger time. And lastly, you could get a damage against gray ones. But stay away from blaze damage. That is the last thing you need. You can have up to 3 substats on your mask mods and your weapon mods as a burn suffix. So that's what you should aim for. The longer the target burns, the better, I guess. But of course, blaze damage 6% is just, imagine it as a 8% elemental damage, except you get 2% less. But it's the same thing. Blaze or elemental, these are the same. They add up to that same stat multiplier. So now the problem with this gun is whenever you are in battle, your first shots will be, well, basically no damage. You're gonna be just doing burn damage and that's it. But when you get and collect these stacks, your damage is gonna be pretty insane, right? All your damage is gonna be doing a chunk of decent amount of damage, and then boom, you reload again, you lose the stacks, and you're back to shooting normally or shooting again with Dragon's Breath ammo. It depends if you get to collect the balls. Sometimes you will not get these balls dropped from mobs and you might get unlucky. So as you can see right here, I'm shooting again with no stacks. And it seems like you get more stacks whenever you don't have Dragon's Breath ammo. I kind of don't like that you're basically playing a ball collecting simulator when you use this gun. That's the only thing I dislike about this gun. The sustained DPS is just not it on this gun. Now, I'm not wearing any mods, so of course the damage is low. I'm gonna show you the build soon. Alright, so first of all, I'm gonna cover the cradle. You have to have this when using rifles, shotguns, or heavy weapons. Damage 15%. Next up, you need to have tactical combo, status enhancement, deviation master, and of course put the lone walker if you do dungeon solo. If you don't, then you can use a bounty hunter with willfire, which boosts your damage by a lot. You will need sustained suppression, continuous damage 25% for 4 seconds after inflicting continuous damage, burn or frost vortex. Then you can use steady hand or again bounty hunter, but I would prefer to use bounty hunter with willfire as it's gonna give you more damage. And heat agglutination, wow, what a word. For every 1 stack of burn triggered, burn damage plus 5% for 6 seconds, up to 6 stacks. You'll also need this. That's it for the cradle. Now moving on to the gear and mods. For the calibration on the ACS12 PYROCLASM starter, you will need to have fire rate and 2 crit rate substats or buffs. Not elemental damage, crit rate. That's how this gun is working. Now, why we're using crit is because when you get these balls, you reload your gun and you shoot the target, you can see that we're doing crit damage with the fire damage. So that's why you need to build crit for this gun. And there's a burn mask mod that gives you crit damage 40% against enemies with burn. So that's why we're using crit rates. Now you want to have as much crit rate as possible because it's very hard to get crit rate for this gun. If you use elemental damage, then your burn ticks will be high, your base damage will be high. I mean, you won't have that crit damage, you know? And then again, when you're probably gonna have up to 200 or 250 elemental damage bonus, it's just not gonna do as much damage as you would balance it with crit damage and elemental damage. And remember, status damage doesn't really work for this gun whenever you reload the gun, so we should not prioritize status damage that much. For the gun mod, we're using Burning Wrath. Triggering burn has 25% chance to grant 1 burn stacks. You can also go with Blaze Blessing if you need to heal up after you kill an enemy, but they have to be burning. Then there's Embers, which whenever the burn ends, you lose half of the stacks on the enemy that is burning, and it will keep burning until the stacks reaches 0. Although I don't use this. And then there's the last one, Flame Resonance. Max burn stack is increased by 2. So as we checked earlier, the max stacks for burning a target is 5 stacks. Once you apply 5 stacks, you cannot go further anymore. But with this Flame Resonance mod, you get an additional 2 stacks, so you'll be able to stack it up to 7 times. But the burn duration is minus 20%. Now, while this could be probably the best mod, but it will take you forever to, proc these burns. And by the time you do that or get to 5 or 6 stacks, your gun is probably going to need to reload. So I think the best mod for this would be Triggering Burn has a 25% chance to grant 1 burn stacks. So whenever you shoot, you could be possibly burning the enemy with 2 stacks instead of triggering 1 stack. And for the substats, you want to have Elemental Damage, Damage against Grey Ones, Status Damage, and that's it. Now, we're going to have to go with a ratio of 4 crit damage and 3 elemental. So this is one mod that has talent suffix. On the helmet, we have Deviation Expert. Now, Deviation Expert is good, but once you reload the gun and get Dragon's Breath ammo, it's not that great anymore because the status damage doesn't work, as I said. So what would be better for the helmet mod is a Fateful Strike mod, which will give you crit damage and weapon damage. It's best to have weapon damage and crit damage if you're using Violent Suffix mod. So for this, damage to Grey Ones, and then the 4th one could be any. On the helmet mod, it can be Talent or Violent. Just remember the ratio is 4 crit damage and 3 elemental. Heck, it could be even 5 crit damage and 2 elemental. The ratio is almost the same as Corrosion build, except the mods are just different. So Retrusion Explosion for the Mask mod. Crit damage plus 40% against enemies with burn. You just gain an insane boost of crit damage when the target is burning. That's pretty much it. The substats to focus is Elemental Damage, a damage against Grey Ones, Status Damage, and whatever the 4th one could be, elite or normal enemies. Again, if it's talents, then that's what you focus. If it's violent, then you need crit damage, weapon damage, Grey Ones damage. For the top piece, we're using munitions amplifier, weapon damage, magazine capacity, and weapon damage again. You could be using a crit damage blue mod. It's either that or that, but the best one would be gold mod with, again, either violent or talent. Any mod, doesn't matter whether it's head-on conflict, that would be good for PVE. Either rejuvenating, also great. But if you're going with talents, same substats apply. Elemental, damage against Grey Ones, and if you're going with violence, again, crit damage, weapon damage, Grey Ones damage. For the pants mod, we're using Precision Charge. For every 10% weak spot hit rate of the previous magazine, elemental damage 4% up to 24%. Now, instead of this mod, you could be replacing into Deadshot since we're using a crit build. Obviously, Deadshot will give you more damage since this is a crit build, so we'll have to stick to that. Substats requirements are the same, they don't change. For the gloves, you want to have crit boost or crit amplifier. Obviously, crit amplifier will give you more crit damage, but you will have less crit rate, which means less damage in general, because crits will not proc because you don't have enough crit rate. So that's why you would want to have crit boost. And for the substats, again, you want to have crit damage, weapon damage, damage against Grey Ones. Whatever you need, whether you kill elite mobs or Grey Ones. Just do know that Grey Ones damage is the mobs that you kill with a huge health bar in dungeons. If the mob does not have a huge health bar, then it's considered an elite enemy, or if it's a small mob, it's a normal enemy. And then lastly, for boost, we have Covered Advance. Again, the substats are the same. Talents are violent. Remember, the ratio is 4-3. The problem is, with this gun, is once you reload and trigger the Dragon's Breath ammo, PSI intensity doesn't matter again. So basically, starring up your armor for this build will be completely useless. The PSI intensity only matters for your burn ticks. Nothing else. Alright, so where do we put this gun in terms of PvE? This gun is considered in a B tier for me. Yes, it does melt targets. Yes, it's strong, but the sustained DPS on this gun is non-existent. Also, this gun is heavily deviation dependent, just like any other burn build, so I put it in B tier for PvE. It loses to this Frost Vertex M4, honestly. Now, it could be an A tier, but I decided to put in B tier because of how unlucky you sometimes can get. You're collecting balls with this gun, running around the map, killing mobs and collecting balls. And if you don't get balls, you have to kill more mobs to get more balls. And then for PvP, this gun is in the Poopsie Garbanzo. It's completely unusable. This corrosion shotgun right here that we have is way more superior. Just stick to corrosion if you want to have a shotgun in your hands and use that instead of the burn shotty. Alright, lastly, what deviation do we use? Le Pyrodino? Or do we use the new deviation that is the Invincible Sun? And I'm gonna just tell you straight away, do not use Invincible Sun. This thing sucks. It explodes every 3 seconds, dealing 50% blaze damage to nearby targets, with a 50% chance of inflicting burn. Whenever a nearby target is inflicted with burn, Invincible Sun gains 1 stack of burn. Each stack of burn increases Invincible Sun's damage by 5%. The target hit takes 20% blaze damage. It's just, it's cool, like it does all of this, but like this target does not move and is immobile. Once you spawn it, it does not move. It just sits there doing this. Exploding every 3 seconds. Okay, cool. While the Pyrodino, what does it do? Honestly, I prefer the Pyrodino way more because it moves, it shoots fireballs, it shoots flamethrower, it does all this damage. And then when you do enough damage to the dummy, it just explodes, which is insane. The problem with this build is that it's deviation dependent, heavily. Like we did 1 million damage in this amount of time. Keep in mind we're wearing tier 3 gear and we have only 7 calibration. All the tier 3 gears we're wearing, it's not tier 5. So I mean, it's nice amount of damage we can do with this deviation, but without the deviation, the damage is non-existent. For the armor, you need to use this Lone Wolf 4 parts, but normally you want to have helmet, mask, gloves, and pants for the highest PSI intensity. And on the jacket, you want to have Renegade. Renegade is there for reload speed 15%. Yes, you could be putting Bastille for 10% weapon damage, but again, it's conditional. You need to have above 70% HP, which almost you never are above 70% HP. That's why we're sticking with Renegade. And for the key armor part, you need to have the Fire Rune boots. You could have the Hardy gloves, which are these, but it will take you quite a long amount of time to stack the burn, and until you stack it up, you will be reloading the gun, which means you'll probably make the target explode once or twice if you get lucky with these gloves. That's why you need to have the Fire Rune boots, because as you pick up the particle, you will increase your blaze damage by 30%. That's just an insane amount of damage boost. And if you're shooting far away, well, you'll have to get close to collect these balls. Anyways, it's still a cool build to try out. This is the best burn build, by the way, like compared to any other burn builds that we have in the game. The Crank, the LMG Boom Boom, the Dual Fury Shotgun. By far, this is the best burn gun out of all the burn families. If you want to try and give burn a try, this is the weapon for you to try it out. I wouldn't use this gun in PvP at all, only for PvE. Another problem is that in phase 2 you will have to kill Chaos Weavers, and this gun will definitely not be able to deal any damage to it because, again, Chaos Weavers are immune to status damage and elemental damage, so this gun will be basically doing immune damage to that boss. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, and peace out.